Hello all, welcome to this. So, Royal Rumble happened tonight, for those of you not aware. Yeah, right. Probably going to be a trillion videos up on this, because it was probably the most watched Rumble in a while, I would think. It did seem to have a lot of buzz on the internet and on Twitter, which I was on while I was at Fox and Hound, which is where I watched it with people, which was nice because you get to see reactions and you get to see what more maybe casual fans reactions were. Though this was definitely an older crowd. I would say you didn't have any kids. It was so it wasn't like going like the Buffalo Wild Wings, which I've been before, where you've got some more families, though it's still usually kind of more of an older crowd. But there was a lot of people there, so I expect that this probably did a pretty big number. I didn't get to see the pre-match Antonio Cesaro versus The Miz, though I heard it was good or okay, um, because Antonio Cesaro is awesome because he is because he's Claudio Castagnoli and he can do crazy stuff. And I've heard that WWE does believe in him. They just feel like he's gonna take a while because he's just gonna be one of those guys that it's just gonna take a while to catch on, but eventually people will like him, and that you just have to keep putting him out there. But anyways, the show itself, I'd actually say this was a great show. I don't know if people will agree with me because I think people got. I think the show itself was very entertaining and was great. I think that a lot of what it set up is not so great. I think some of the finishes were and I think some of the stuff it's leading to for WrestleMania is kind of the same way. But we'll get into that. But overall, I would say the show was pretty good to great. If you said you did not enjoy the show, I would almost have to call you a liar because I don't think that was the case. I think if you watch the show, there was a lot of entertaining stuff on it. You had the opener, which was Alberto Del Rio versus Big Show, which was which was pretty good. I wouldn't say it was great or anything. I would say it was good. Solid match. It had one really crazy spot. Was pretty physical. Though my biggest complaint, and I said this on Twitter, and people I don't think quite understood what I was saying, was that Del Rio, who was supposed to be the face, was wrestling more as a heel, and Big Show, who was supposed to be the heel, was fighting more, was getting more of a face reaction. So I kept asking who's the face and who's the heel, because this was really kind of strange to me. But it was still a good match. To me, you should always be able to tell who's the heel and who's the face, and who's playing what for the most part. And if you're doing two faces, then one guy shouldn't be acting like a heel if he's a babyface. Maybe tweener-ish, but not like this was pretty much heelish. But the match was good. You had one really crazy table spot, which looked like it sucked. You had Bret Hart before the match come out and kind of give a little rub to Alberto Del Rio, but yeah, that was Ricardo kind of looked like a geek in this part, which I think may have been kind of the point, but who knows. Then we had the title match, or the tag title match, which was Daniel Bryan and Kane versus the Rhodes Scholars, which I liked. I thought was pretty good. My biggest problem was I thought the wrong team went over, but it's. I guess if Kane and Daniel Bryan didn't go over here, the spot they had during the Royal Rumble, which I'll get to, probably wouldn't have worked. So maybe I think it may have still worked, but I definitely think it's time for Daniel Bryan to kind of go on his own and leave Kane. He's definitely mad over. If you watch the show, you get one of the bigger reactions during the Royal Rumble. So there we go. But yeah, it would be my only complaint, as I think the wrong team won. So there you go. Then we had the Royal Rumble itself. Yes, it did not main event. CM Punk and The Rock main evented, which perfectly fine with. I really liked this. I thought this was booked pretty well. They brought in some surprises. We had Chris Jericho to start things. Let's see who else. You had the Godfather, who was in there for all of like a second. You had who else came back? Who else was kind of a surprise? Well, I guess that's all I can think of off the top of my head. But I know there was more. I just can't think of who all was there. But oh, Goldust. Him and Cody kind of had a little fun, which was nice to see, and I kind of marked out for, so that was okay. But I guess the star, the guy that probably maybe should have gotten the biggest rub, I think, but I don't think it came off that way, was Ziggler. He was in there forever, it seemed. Him and Jericho both. But I did like the way they did everything. I thought everything really worked out. One of my little gripes would have been, I thought Santino, who I know is hurt, but I think they should have had him come out later, probably when you needed maybe a little bit more of a pop. I think that would have worked a little better myself. The Shield was not in this match, which kind of surprised me. I figured they would be in there, but they were not. And my other gripe would have just been, I think that Ryback should have won myself. And I think he should have eliminated the last four guys. I think if Ziggler wasn't going to win, to me personally, I don't feel like you needed Punk or you needed Cena and Rock to win for them to have a rematch. I don't get that idea to myself. I don't think it sets up for a better WrestleMania myself. I think you're not going to sell any more tickets, in my opinion, if it's for the title or not for the title. I think Cena can just go out there and say, you know what, I want Rock one more time. And Rock say, okay, let's do it one more time. I want to make sure, that I didn't get lucky, and and that it was magical and all this stuff, and just talk it up and do the match. But yeah, so that would have been my thing, and I would have. If this is the way you were gonna go, I would have had Ryback win, and then do your Ryback CM Punk Shield blow off match with Ryback winning, yes, the title at WrestleMania. I would have done that. I don't see anything wrong with that. Your biggest problem, of course, is going to be somewhere down the line, because you're going to probably want the title off Ryback, I would think, fairly quick. But you have another, you have the world title if you need to, if you feel like that he can't headline a show, which I think you eventually were going to have to go with him in some point. Even if you have John Cena, or if you just have Brock come in and beat him and just say, okay, that's it. We now, we beat up this monster, and now we made Brock even look nastier, or something along those lines. I think that would have worked really well at WrestleMania myself, but that's just me. But yeah, the Royal Rumble itself, I really enjoyed. I had a lot of fun. There was really, like I said, I had no complaints really until Ziggler went out, and then I would say I had really no complaints um, until John Cena won myself. But it wasn't enough for me to think, oh, this is sucky. I just, oh well. Then you had CM Punk versus The Rock, which I thought was pretty freaking great up until the end. I thought the first finish was really flat. And I thought the second finish was just as flat. And I do think that had to do with the fact that The Rock won with the People's Elbow and not the Rock Bottom. I think people are like, well, the Rock Bottom is his finisher, not the, I whatever. But, so that came off a little weak. Yes, I'm a CM Punk fan. Yes, I would have had CM Punk win, but not for that. Not because I'm a CM Punk fan, because I think that here was your chance to have CM Punk go over a guy, to go over, for him to go out there in a match. This was a really good match. It was pretty great. You had the crowd was into it. It was really good, and I think and Punk and Rock, you know, did some really good wrestling. Punk looked like he belonged, and I think if you would have had him go over, then people could have said, "Hey, look, he beat The Rock," and you would have given him that rub that you've not given him, because he hasn't been the main guy. He hasn't been put in the main spots unless he was with Cena or Rock. And so, as much as I don't think the WWE gets it, for whatever reason, and you would think because there's enough people there that have been in wrestling that they would get it. You know, they do this thing, and this brings me kind of back to the opener too, since the opener was the world title match. And Doug, of all people, I'm gonna talk about him from RVD Tito to Life, for life. He was talking about, you know, the fact that, you know, this just showed how important the match was because it was going on first. Now, I'm sure to the WWE, they were like, oh, we're going to start this match off because it'll get people excited, it'll be a good opener. And while I get that, you know, I can tell you with the people I was around, they kind of had the same feeling of, oh, well, that just showed, you know, oh, look, you know, because WWE, you know, I watched the Austin DVD on Netflix recently, and I also watched the Punk DVD. And on both DVDs, Triple H, one of my favorite guys, of course, and everybody knows that he's one of my favorite guys, of course, I say, with a smile and a wink, that, you know, that the title, basically he got, one of the things he was talking about was the title doesn't make the guy. And while I agree that if you win the title, that doesn't automatically make you the guy, I think it helps make you the guy. I think that it can take someone who is not the guy yet, and I think it can elevate him closer to that spot to being the guy, and it can give somebody the chance to become the guy. But to do that, you have to make that title important. And I think one of my biggest gripes with both TNA and WWE is the fact that, well, TNA not so much, because I think they've done a better job with this, is making the titles seem important. Because if the titles are important, when somebody wins, that tells the fans this guy is important. And you know, wrestling can be very simple that way. It's a con game. You have to, you know, it's a tool that people buy into, the belts. A tool that a prop, because that's the way they look at it, a prop that the fans buy into, so to help you elevate a guy. So why would you try to make them mean something, which means that when you give it to it, it doesn't mean anything. It just means, oh, well, he's got a title. It doesn't help elevate a guy, other than it just means he's going to get more TV time. Giving a guy more TV time, well, yes, it you know, it helps elevate. If you put the titles over, you make the titles seem important, that's going to make trying to get guys over and trying to make people believe guys are important that much easier. That's just my opinion. Maybe I'm completely off base in saying that, but that's just the way I see it. So if you have CM Punk beat The Rock, and you make it look like, hey, you know, this guy belongs with The Rock, which I think he showed. I think he showed in his promos. I think he showed in all this stuff that, you know, he wasn't overshadowed. He wasn't, you know, all this stuff. He belonged there in that program with The Rock. That helps make a guy bigger and closer to The Rock than he was before. My problem with both The Rock and Cena winning is that now The Rock is the title, is the, you know, world champion. And while that's all good and wonderful, the other thing is that what does this mean for WrestleMania? Because what it's rumored we might get, and yes, this is just rumors, but if this is the rumored card, is CM Punk versus John Cena for the title. I don't see that doing any more buys or any less buys than what you did last year. So now you're like, okay, then you've got your Undertaker match. Okay, it looks like what we're going to get for the Undertaker match is Undertaker versus CM Punk. I love CM Punk. I love what they've done with CM Punk. By no means do I have any faith that people, even the most, that anyone believes that they are going to put CM Punk over the Undertaker. No one's going to believe that. So what's the point of doing that match? The only people you can, at this point, put in that match with Undertaker at WrestleMania are the people, is someone that people believe are going, that is going to beat The Undertaker. Okay, that's the only people you can do. So instead of getting Brock, okay, and there might be more to this, and that's maybe Brock and Undertaker don't want to work together. I don't know, and maybe that's part of it. I don't know. I'm willing to admit that I don't know, but that's it. That should be your match. Should be Brock versus Undertaker, because that will sell. That will even help sell more than, I think, Brock versus Triple H Part 2, because I think the people who bought SummerSlam and saw Brock versus Triple H Part 1 probably are going to be like, it wasn't that much, it's not anyone that's not going to want to see Cena versus Undertaker. Where I think if you did, or Cena versus Rock, where I think if you have Brock versus Undertaker, that might bring in some people that aren't going to just tune in because of Cena versus Rock. That's my opinion. Maybe I'm completely out of whack there. And then you can do Punk for, like I said, Punk versus Ryback, which doesn't have to be, the main event. It can be, somewhere on the card, maybe on the upper card. And yes, it only needs to go 10 minutes. It doesn't have to go very long. Cena can go, or Punk can go out there with Ryback for as long as he feels like he can go out there and get a good match out of him, and then do the job, and your storyline's over, and, Ryback has gotten his revenge on Punk after all this time, and he's gotten the title, and it's a nice little story, and the people can go home happy, and all of those things that WrestleMania is supposed to be. And yes, I know the internet's going to be like, oh, but it's Ryback. It's so what? The dude's over. It's one of the few guys that they've been able to get over. And yes, he's a one-trick pony. Yes, how much of his stuff is the Goldberg stuff, and then what do you do with him once he loses? I get all of that. But at the same time, I think the show, you could have had him easily eliminate the last 4 guys by himself. Just eliminate them, make him look strong. Then he goes in, he beats Punk, and then next pay-per-view he loses to somebody. Maybe he loses somebody dirty-handedly. Maybe he, and then if he can't keep that momentum up, so what? You've gotten as much money out of him as you possibly can, and that's what you've needed to do. So, that's just kind of the way I look at it. To me, a WrestleMania with what I just said, Cena versus Rock, CM Punk versus Undertaker, and Triple H versus Brock. That's super, super, super star-studded, and really I don't see it doing, as much as probably most people would think. I think you have to do Brock versus Undertaker. I really do. Now, I also think that you, at some point, if Austin is going to do one last match, if he's truly going to do one last match, it needs to be against Punk. That's something that they've continually set up. And that match, in my opinion, does need to be for the title, because that then does add something more, because it adds, Punk, just for, let's say that they actually do have that match planned for whatever reason, even though I don't think so. I don't think they're going to do it. Let's say they do. Punk just beat Rock. Then Punk cuts a promo saying, see, he beat The Rock. Why did he beat The Rock? Because he is this generation's John Cena. Or not John Cena. Steve Austin. Just like The Rock was his generation's John Cena. And that, Cena will now be playing second fiddle to him. Yeah, that's true, but that's okay. He's playing heel. Austin takes offense. Austin comes out. They feud. They feud over the title. That's at WrestleMania. That's the way I would set it up. If you were going to do that match, not saying they would, they probably won't. But like I said, if Austin's going to do one more match, that's probably what it should be. That said, if you're not going to do that, to me, the storyline that you kind of just fell into your lap that would work is Ryback and Punk, and you're not going to do that. And I think that is a big mistake. I really think, because if you just do Punk and Ryback at WrestleMania and they have no title up for grab, that will be, who cares? Honestly, it won't mean as much as it would be if Punk was still champion. So there you go. That's the way I look at it. Maybe I'm wrong, whatever. But the show was great, I would say. In my opinion, it was great. And I would say go out of your way to watch it, but, what do I know? Anyways, that's just kind of my opinions on that. So, with that, I'm out. Have a good one.